incredible stories about the luckiest people who survived the impossible. Number 10. Tutumu Yamaguchi. Tutumu Yamaguchi, among some 260,000 people who survived the atomic bomb attacks in Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II, became to be known as the only man who survived the horror of both and lived to tell the tale. At the time, he was working for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, and the day of the Hiroshima atomic bomb attack happened was supposed to be the last day of his 3-month-long business trip. Reportedly, he'd been less than 3 kilometers from ground zero when the attack happened on the 6th of August, 1945. "I didn't know what had happened," he later told the British newspaper The Times. "I think I fainted for a while. When I opened my eyes, everything was dark and I couldn't see much. It was like the start of a film at the cinema before the picture had begun and the blank frames are just flashing up without any sound." He suffered serious injuries. He then returned to his hometown, Nagasaki, in order to receive treatment for his wounds. Unfortunately, he arrived just in time to become witness to the second U.S. atomic bomb to strike Japan. Despite the radiation-related ailments he suffered throughout his life, he lived to the age of 93. Number 9. Paul Templar. Paul Templar was working as a tour guide on Zimbabwe's Zambezi River in the 1990s when a hippo emerged from the water and plucked him out of his canoe. He managed to miraculously escape its powerful jaws, but not without any consequences. He lost an arm and ended up with severe injuries in the process. "It happened so very quickly. The first thing I knew, I was in a deep, dank place with this incredible pressure crushing down on my lower back," he told the BBC. Although working as a safari guide for years, nothing could have prepared him for this. Allegedly, he was trying to save a friend who was knocked out of the canoe by this giant bloodthirsty hippo when the animal grabbed him and pulled him underwater. First, waist up in the hippo's mouth. When he finally somehow managed to wiggle his way out of its jaws, the hippo struck again, trying to drag him beneath the water. The battle lasted for some time and was not to be over yet. Just when the guides were trying to get back to land, the hippo returned and swallowed Templar's feet first. He described the second face-off as a dog tossing around a rag doll. The hippo retreated after a while, but the attack claimed the life of a guide and Templar's body was severely injured with over 38 bites. When Templar was taken to a nearby hospital, surgeons feared he would lose both legs and arms. Fortunately, they were able to save his right arm and his injured legs. After making a full recovery, Templar became a motivational speaker. Number 8. Frane Selleck. The luckiest, or unluckiest man, depending on your perspective, Frane Selleck, a Croatian who said to have survived a train crash, a plane crash, and a car crash. Imagine the scenes from your favorite action movies. Well, this man's seen it all. Until a fateful train trip in 1962, this man had led a relatively unremarkable life as a music teacher, unsuspecting of a series of impossible events were about to unravel. Nevertheless, he survived them all, even though during the process he might have lost some friends who started believing he brings bad luck. Fortunately, after several years, in the mid-2000s, Selleck's luck evened out and Selleck became a lottery winner. His jackpot was worth over £600,000. With this, he bought a luxurious home, only to have change of heart and sell it in 2010. He returned to a humble life with his 5th wife. Whatever happened along the way, Frane's story is a happy ending. He spent the last of his winnings on his hip operation and on a shrine to the Virgin Mary, and thanks to his good fortune. Number 7. Wenceslao Mogul. In 1915, Wenceslao Mogul, a soldier of Pancho Villa during the Mexican Revolution, was captured and immediately stood in front of a firing squad. Mogul had only one superpower, but it surely was the only one he needed. He was exceptionally good at staying alive no matter what. Allegedly, he was shot 10 times by the squad, followed by a coup de grace shot to the head delivered by the squad's commander. There's different stories on how he was rescued, whether he crawled away from the execution ground when the time was right, or if he was found unconscious by other people who saved him. Nevertheless, the fact remains that he did survive despite being badly disfigured. He went on to live a full life with the nickname El Fusilado, or the Executed One, and he died around 1975. Number 6. Matt Suter. There's a thin line between whether we could call some of our heroes lucky or unlucky people, proved in the case of Matt Suter, who survived a 150-mile-per-hour tornado ride that launched him 400 meters into the air. It all happened in 2006 while the 19-year-old was spending some leisure time in his grandma's trailer. The tornado hit, wrecking everything in sight. He barely had time to realize what was happening when he was sucked into the raging darkness above. The record for the longest distance a human being has ever survived being flung, initially held by a 9-year-old girl who rode a tornado for 300 meters, was broken by Matt Suter, who survived a wild 400-meter ride up in the air. Hopefully, no one will beat this record. The following stories will definitely reshape your understanding of the word impossible, so make sure you stay tuned. Number 5. Roy Sullivan. Roy Cleveland Sullivan was a United States park ranger in the Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. Between 1942 and 1977, Sullivan was hit by lightning on 7 occasions and survived them all. For this reason, he's gained the nicknames Human Lightning Conductor and Human Lightning Rod. Sullivan is recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as the person struck by lightning more recorded times than any other human being. He survived each jolt, but not unharmed. The first one only tested the waters and knocked his big toenail off. In 1969, the second strike burned off his eyebrows and knocked him unconscious. In 1970, another strike left his shoulders seared. The last jolt sent him to the hospital with chest and stomach burns, but also put him in the Guinness Book of World Records for most lightning strikes survived. In the end, when Sullivan did pass away, it was a self-inflicted bullet, not a bolt that ended his life. Number 4. Anatoly Petrovich Bergorsky. On July 13, 1978, Russian scientist Anatoly Petrovich Bergorsky became the only person to ever stick his head in a running particle accelerator. He was a researcher at the Institute for High Energy Physics in Protivna and was just checking a malfunctioning piece of equipment on the Soviet particle accelerator, synchrotron U-70, when he accidentally put his head directly in the path of the machine's proton beam. He reported seeing a flash that was brighter than 1,000 suns, but didn't feel any pain when this occurred. Still, over the next few days, his body, or his face to be precise, experienced some changes. It started swelling up and peeling off, which actually revealed the path the proton beam had burned through his face, changing it beyond recognition. Even though he received an excessive dose of radiation, he survived and even completed his PhD. And we're not done yet. The most astonishing thing is that, when looking at Bergorsky now, you'll notice that the right half of his face is aged, while the left looks as if it was frozen in time 22 years ago. Go figure that. Number 3. Harrison O'Keefe. Harrison O'Keefe, a 29-year-old cook, was the only survivor of the Jackson 4, which overturned after being battered by heavy swells in May 2013. 11 other crew members died as the vessel sank some 20 kilometers off Nigeria's mangrove-lined coast. When the ship began to sink, Harrison managed to find a small pocket of air in the engineer's office. He'd been underwater for almost 60 hours when he heard a hammering on the deck. A team of South African divers scouring the waters on a presumed body recovery mission were shocked to hear faint hammering in reply. O'Keefe was strapped into diving equipment, then led to a diving bell, which took him to the surface, where he spent 2 days in a decompression chamber. It was a pure stroke of luck that he survived for so long at such a depth. It's no wonder that the news about how all of this happened soon went viral. Number 2. Eric Nurhus. 41-year-old Eric Nurhus was casually diving for abalone shellfish off the coast of Australia with his son and a group of friends, when all of a sudden everything went dark, and after a few seconds he realized he was actually having a pretty close encounter with a great white shark. Eric's head, a shoulder, and an arm were inside the shark's mouth, and 3,000 teeth were biting down on his body. But Eric certainly wasn't one to become anyone's victim, not even to the most dangerous sea animal. What he did next was one of the most amazing and extraordinary things. He didn't surrender, and he started poking the shark's eye with one free hand. Luckily, he managed to fight his way out of the shark's jaws and escape. He was pulled out of the water by his son and flown to a hospital with serious injuries to his head, body, and left arm. Number 1. Mauro Prosperi. The story of Mauro Prosperi is yet another story of raw survival, almost impossible to believe. In 1994, Mauro decided to compete in the Marathon des Sables, considered one of the toughest athletic events on Earth. The first 3 days went just fine, but the fourth day, an unexpected sandstorm happens that changes the further path of our protagonist. Even though he lost sight of the other athletes, he kept moving forward, only in the wrong direction, ultimately running several hundred kilometers into Algeria. After 36 hours of wandering, he ran out of food and water supplies, so he had to do the unimaginable in order to survive. He ate bats and drank his own urine. At some point, he tried to commit suicide by cutting his veins, but unsuccessfully, since the lack of water caused his blood to thicken and clotted the wound. So he did the only thing that was left there to be done. He kept on living, and he kept on walking across the desert. After 9 days in the desert, he came across nomadic shepherds who took him to a military camp in Algeria. His odyssey ended in the hospital, with a total of 15 kilograms lost and an amount of 299 kilometers in his legs. He'll later retell the story of this extraordinary journey in an autobiographical book, 10 Days Beyond Life. This certainly reshapes your definition of impossible, right?
Number 12. South Korean janitor discovers gold. In April 2018, a South Korean janitor about his work changing garbage cans at the Incheon International Airport found unusual discarded trash. Beneath one of the trash cans were 7 solid gold bars that each weighed 1 kilogram and were wrapped in newspaper. The janitor turned in the gold valued 350 million won, $325,000, to the police, who suspected that it had links to a crime. South Korea does have a finder's keeper's law allowing anyone that turns in a found item to keep it if it isn't claimed within 6 months. They also have a Lost Articles Act entitling the finder to between 5 and 20% of the lost item's value should the original owner turn up to collect it. The likelihood is that no one will turn up to collect the loot, and the janitor can start dancing all the way to the bank. Number 11. San Jose Storage Unit Gold. In 2011, a San Jose man bid on a storage unit for $1,100, not knowing what was inside it. A lot of people jump at such risky investments, and you just have to watch an episode of Storage Wars to figure out why. His bargain paid off, and inside he found 16 gold doubloons, silver and gold ingots, and several Spanish silver dollars. The Spanish coins dated back to around the 16th and 19th century. An elderly woman previously owned the unit, and she had passed away around that time, forcing the auctioneers to put her storage unit up for sale. In total, the unexpected treasure stored within a Rubbermaid bin was valued at $500,000. Number 10. Normandy Treasure. An anonymous heir inherited a French chateau in Normandy back in 2016. It isn't uncommon for such older homes to remain untouched for years because of the massive responsibilities that come along with owning and maintaining such a property. That's the state that the inherited home was in, and antiques as well as old family belongings filled the house. The new owners decided to start renovations on the house and started moving furniture. They uncovered hidden tin boxes that had collected layers of dust, and within them were $3.7 million worth of gold coins and bars. Unfortunately, the new owners had to pay inheritance tax following the sale, but it still left them with a comfortable amount to restore the crumbling estate. Number 9. 600 gold Belgian coins. This June, demolition workers found a mysterious shell-shaped box at a house they were about to demolish in Brittany, France. Inside were 600 gold Belgian coins with the effigy of King Leopold II and dates back from 1870. This find is worth 100,000 euros or $117,000, and it will be shared equally between the builders and the owners of the house. Number 8. The Saddle Ridge Hoard. In 2013, a Sierra Nevada couple walking their dog on their rural property found an old rusted metal can poking from the ground. They inspected the can and were pleasantly surprised to find that it wasn't empty. Inside it was about 1,500 gold coins with a total face value of just under $30,000. All the coins dated back to between 1847 and 1894, and it is currently the largest collection of buried coins discovered in the U.S. The couple, who chose to remain anonymous, explained that they had noticed a couple of unique features around the area. They explained that they had seen a very old can hanging from a tree, and the tree had grown around it. An odd-shaped rock also lay on a nearby hill, and they concluded that they were markers indicating the location of the loot. They were able to sell the coins for an impressive $1 million at an auction. Number 7. Oldest Iron Age Gold. In December 2016, friends Mark Hambleton and Joe Canna were metal detecting in a field in Staffordshire, and they pulled a piece of gold out of the ground. They found 3 gold necklaces and a bracelet, which a British museum representative has since described as a unique find of international importance. The finds are thought to date around 400 to 250 BC, and it is 2,500 years old at least. The treasure has since been valued at $430,900, which the pair shared with the landowner Stuart Heath. Number 6. Builders find coins in a pub. Every time you go to the pub, you usually end up with less money in your pocket, but 5 Irish builders found 81 gold coins when working on the foundations of Cooney's Bar. The builders started to realize that they had found something special when they wiped away the clay covering the coins. In fact, they found a hoard of 17th century gold guineas and half guineas under the pub's floorboards. You can see the coins at the National Museum of Ireland, Collins Barracks in Dublin. The 5 builders have been offered an undisclosed finder's reward in their role in locating the gold coins. Number 5. The theater gold coins. Archaeologists found hundreds of ancient gold coins in the basement of a former theater in northern Italy. The coins were spilling out of a 2-handled soapstone jar called an amphora, buried in the dirt. Maria Grazia Fanchinetti, an expert in rare coins, said that whoever placed the jar in that place buried it in such a way that in case of danger they could go and retrieve it. The coins date back to 474 AD, and they have engravings of the emperors Honorius, Valentinian III, Leon I, Antonio, and Livio Severo. According to Luca Rinaldi, the local archaeology superintendent, the coins had inestimable value. Number 4. Hoard in a piano. A 100-year-old piano had been donated to Bishop's Castle Community College in 2016, and while the college's piano technician Martin Backhouse was working on it, he found the coins stored in white corduroy pouches lying underneath the piano's keys. The hoard dates from 1847 to 1915, and it was valued at $566,000, and both the college and Martin Backhouse shared the profits. Number 3. Gold bars in a French garden. In the French town of Rouen in the Loire region, a couple came under police investigation after they found 28 gold bars in their back garden between 2009 and 2013. The bars had an estimated value of $942,168. However, despite legally declaring the finds, the couple underwent a criminal investigation when they sold 23 of the bars, creating transaction levels that alerted an anti-laundering agency. The house's previous owner took the couple to court over the ownership of the gold bullions and won. The couple had to return the remaining bars of gold along with the money from the sale of 15 of them. Have you ever made a golden discovery? Use our poll feature now, and if you answered yes, tell us all about it in the comments section. Number 2. Tank collector finds $2.6 million worth of hidden gold. 55-year-old Nick Mead found 5 gold bars worth $2.6 million hidden within the fuel tank of a Russian T-54-69 that he was restoring. Mead, who is a tank fanatic, got the new tanker model at an estimated $39,500 to add to his 150 military vehicle collection. When filming the work progress on the tanker restorations in April 2017, along with mechanic Todd Chamberlain, they surprisingly pulled out the gold bars weighing 12 pounds apiece. Mead believed that Iraqi soldiers might have looted the gold bars during the Gulf War. The two had already stumbled on machine gun ammunition when they were stripping the tank down, and they thought they would possibly find guns hidden within it too. They stored the gold in a safe deposit box, not quite sure what to do with it, but Mead explained that if he didn't get to keep the gold, at least he had his beautiful tank. Number 1. The Staffordshire Hoard. Terry Herbert found what is considered the largest Anglo-Saxon treasure trove ever discovered in 2009. Herbert had his metal detector when he decided to search through a freshly plowed field near Hammerwich in Staffordshire. The treasure hoard had more than 3,500 items, and a majority of them had military relations. However, the treasure trove also included a significant number of decorative items and several religious artifacts. The belief is that the hoard dates back to the 8th century. The hoard was purchased jointly by the Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery and the Potteries Museum and Art Gallery for €3.285 million, or $5,435 million, under the Treasure Act of 1996.
10 homeless people who won the lottery.
10. Glenn Williams. You know how the saying goes. The world is full of good people. If you can't find one, be one. That's exactly what Sophia Andrade from Massachusetts did, but little did she know what kind of an avalanche of kindness her little act of charity will set in motion. Sophia scratched a ticket and won $200, which really isn't all that much, but it made all the difference in the world for Glenn. He was standing along the side of a road in the freezing cold, begging passers-by for some spare change. Sophia gave him more than that. She took him into her home and treated him to some coffee and a hot meal. When she found out that Glenn didn't have a place to stay overnight, she used her prize money to buy him 3 nights at a local hotel. Then she started a GoFundMe on his behalf and raised a whopping $15,000 in 2 days. Glenn received many donations of warm clothes and other material aid, as well as a free haircut from a local barber. 9. The Anonymous Californian Man. While we don't know the name of this lucky winner, his hilarious story is sure worth sharing. Namely, unlike Glenn Williams, his lottery gift was a bit of a mess. Emily Leach, a resident of California, won $1 million from a scratch ticket and used it to pay off a medical debt. She had pancreatitis and a ruptured spleen, so the lottery money came like a fax from heaven. Sometime later, she won another $26,000 from another ticket, but this lucky second strike turned out to be quite a jinx. When Emily wanted to give some money to a homeless man, she gave him the winning ticket instead. The man in question said he actually bought the ticket from her, since he knew about her previous big win. He was hoping that her ticket would bring him some good luck. Emily, on the other hand, claimed it was an accident and that she wanted to give him some cash, not her scratch ticket. She asked the homeless man to share the prize money and immediately got figuratively whipped by the public. Asking a homeless person for money isn't a good idea when you're already a millionaire, especially when the scratch ticket store clerk said she gave the ticket away intentionally. Due to the media frenzy surrounding the event, the homeless man in question asked to remain unidentified. 8. Wilbur Herbert Jr. After Mr. Wilbur Herbert Jr. wound up homeless, he lived on the streets for several years. He was declared to be disabled, so he couldn't get work even though he wanted to. Fortunately for him, he had a brother and a sister-in-law. They managed to reconnect, and his family did all they could to help Wilbur get back on his own 2 feet. In January 2016, encouraged by his sister-in-law, he invested $2 for a single line of numbers in the famous $1.6 billion Powerball jackpot. He actually played once before, several years earlier, and won $500. This time, he was so sure he wouldn't win anything that he actually slept through the draw. The next day, however, he got a beautiful surprise. He was a winner. Although he didn't score the grand prize, he did win an amazing $50,000, which is quite a bounty for a man in such a dire situation. 7. Steve Borick. Not all lottery wins are a happy piece of news. Steve Borick from Vancouver in Canada found himself in one of the most frustrating situations you can imagine. He won a lottery prize, but wasn't able to collect it. Steve was made homeless after his marriage fell apart and survived taking various temporary jobs. He was depressed and dragging along a medical debt when he took his Lady Luck for a first date and played an $8 Keno game. Lady Luck smiled and he won $25,000. However, he was unable to claim them because he didn't have a valid ID. He actually lost it and never had a need to replace it because he was homeless. Now, he couldn't get a new one without a copy of his birth certificate, but he couldn't get a copy of the certificate without an ID. Thankfully, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation lent him a hand, and he collected his winnings 8 months later. He rented a condo and got a steady job at a construction company. 6. Dennis Mahurin. Going back to the saying from our first story, Dennis Mahurin turned out to be one of those selfless souls who are a gift to everyone around them. He was living in a tent in a homeless people camp in Bloomington in Illinois. He had been there for 20 years. One day he bought a scratch ticket and was shocked when he discovered that he had actually won a prize, $50,000. However, instead of buying new clothes or renting an apartment, Dennis just got himself a somewhat bigger tent and divided all the rest of the lottery money among the homeless people of his community. Well, we all know what they say. No one knows the pains of poverty better than the poor man himself. 5. Crystal Nelson. This old lady proved the truth behind the well-known motto, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again. Her first encounter with the lottery brought her $1,000, but she still ended up living in a truck with her friend. Imagine how depressing it must be to call a random parking lot your home. However, Crystal was a tough old lady and did everything she could to carry her own weight. She worked as a carrier for a local newspaper, and one day she bought a ticket for the Powerball, the same game which got Wilbur Herbert Jr. out of his troubles. They even won the exact same prize, $50,000. Crystal actually decided not to change her lifestyle, but to take the change one day at a time. She decided to buy a little place of her own and then to visit her brother in Arizona. She hoped to help him pay off his house so that he could have a roof to call his own too. 4. John Michael LeBlanc. Here's another example of how a lucky break can turn around and bite you in the leg. John Michael was actually prosecuted for cashing in a winning check. He found a scratch card worth $260 and thought it was his lucky moment. Unfortunately, that luck was short-lived. The card actually belonged to a woman who accidentally lost it in the street. And even more unfortunately, she had a photo to prove it. She had reported it missing at a local police station, and John's logic of finders keepers didn't really impress the magistrate. Not only was he ordered to pay back the winning money, which he already spent on a bus ticket, but he was also charged an additional $130 for the theft. Talk about brutal. It wasn't all hex and jinx though. Cameron and Kylie, a couple of local residents, stood up for the homeless man, paid his fine, and spread the word. They raised $1,300 for him. 3. Michael Engfors. This gentleman's story happened in Aspen, in Colorado. Michael spent 6 years on the streets after the collapse of his business and a divorce. He stayed at a local homeless center whenever he had the chance, and one day he spent $10 on a lottery ticket. Imagine his shock when the results came in. He had won a head-spinning 500,000 green ones. He spent the weekend following his victory sleeping on the floor of the shelter before the shelter director could drive him to the office of the lottery to claim his big winnings. Can you guess how he used the money? Forget fancy hotels or furious cars. Engfors decided to use his new treasure on reconnecting with his daughter and buying a pair of skis. Now there's a man of simple pleasures. 2. Josh Bryant. Welcome to the Windy City, better known as Chicago, Illinois. This is where the incredible story of Josh Bryant happened. He was injured in a car accident and got buried under an avalanche of medical expenses. His job brought him only a minimum wage, and that was nowhere near enough for the hospital, rent, groceries, and everything else. Josh filed for bankruptcy, went homeless, and started taking up all sorts of odd jobs, consistently refusing to beg for spare change. One day, he helped a man move his furniture, which earned him $20 and a lottery ticket. He scratched it and found himself the winner of $200,000. This allowed him to pay his debts, move into a decent apartment, and get a steady job again. Now he is a fast food manager and an inspiration to his employees and customers. 1. Derek Mabuso. This is a unique case on our list because Derek himself isn't a homeless person, but he is a sort of patron for his local homeless community in Omaha, Nebraska. Along with 8 of his co-workers, he participated in the office's lottery pool, which brought them an astonishing jackpot of $365 million. These 9 people divided the winnings among themselves, and Derek used his share to help the Sienna Francis House Homeless Center. Here's what he does. Every year during the Christmas season, he purchases a huge bunch of $45 Walmart gift cards and gives them to the center. He decided on this idea along with Mike Sackler, the director of the Sienna Francis House. Mr. Sackler says that the holiday season is especially difficult for the homeless, and now Derek's donations are considered a tradition. They've been going on for 10 years.
Thanks for watching!